Hello, Maniacs, and welcome back to another episode of Cult Classic Mania. I am your host, Matthew, and this episode is brought to you by CultCelebrities.com, the internet's weirdest resources for all B-movies and cult films. They've been a long-time supporter of the show, and I can't thank them enough for that, because they've been here since the very beginning. Lastly, I'm switching the schedule starting in May to a bi-weekly schedule. I want to step up the quality with these episodes, and I feel like putting more effort into the research to make that quality change happen will work out for the best. And that's all I got for you this week. I hope you guys enjoy this episode of Mars Attacks from 1996, directed by the one and only Tim Burton.
Fuck ass, give me a beer!
Yeah, welcome back to the cinema. This is not for the typical. Time to feed the occipital lobe with the films that I call my home. Buckle up, settle in, we'll be breaking down a bit. Got a new take, make an old film relevant. But to give attention to the unsung revenants of the film industry, that's a rap, let's riff.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Cult Classic Mania.
Hello, Maniacs, and welcome back to another episode of Cult Classic Mania, a podcast dedicated to the low-budget disasters that we all know and love. Not all of them are low budget, but definitely can be disasters. I'm your host, Matthew, and this week we are talking about Mars Attacks from 1996, directed by the one and only Tim Burton. And this episode is going to be a little bit different because I forgot all of my notes for the actual recording of Mars Attacks. So I'm sorry, it's going to be horribly ad-libbed most likely. I'm going to try to remember everything that I can. I printed off a few things, that way I could try to jog my memory a little bit. Other than that, I'm going to pretty much ad-lib everything, so fucking enjoy that, I guess. It hasn't really been a good week for the Cult Classic Mania camp. My computer crashed, I lost all my files because I'm a dummy and I didn't back up any of them, and after I got everything back up and working, my audio interface crashed on me and I had to figure out how to get things up and running again with that, and the microphone stopped working too, just because everything, all the dominoes started to fall pretty much, and yeah, I got everything working finally, but then once I got to the studio, my dumbass again forgot all of my notes. So again, everything is going to be ad-libbed. I'm sorry. I'm going to try the best I can. I'm just trying to get this episode out to you guys. Oh man, but if you feel like sending me an angry tweet, you can go ahead and follow us on Twitter at CCMPod. You can follow us on Instagram at Cult Classic Mania. If you feel like supporting us monetarily, you can go ahead and do so by going to patreon.com/Cult Classic Mania. As always, those links will always be in the show notes below, so go ahead and check those out, and let's go ahead and dive right into Mars Attacks. Now, I remember watching this film whenever I was probably about 10 or 11 years old, and apparently I don't remember fuck all about this because nothing rang a bell, well, except for the "We Come in Peace" quote and a couple of other things, but it's not at all how I remembered it as a kid. I thought it was a fun, crazy satire alien invasion film, and it's not at all how I remembered it. But it's crazy. It was a good nostalgia trip for me, but other than that, it was I don't know how to explain it. I'll get into it more, that's for sure. But it was weird to me just revisiting this film as an adult. It'd just be I clearly do not have a great memory as a child from being a child, I guess. Well, let's get into this thing, shall we? Mars Attacks is directed and written by the one and only Tim Burton, and you may remember him from the movies such as Edward Scissorhands, Beetlejuice, Alice in Wonderland, Big Fish, a ton of other different movies, because in the late 80s and late 90s, early 2000s, Tim Burton was a god to me as far as directors go. Beetlejuice is probably one of my favorite movies as a kid watching that. I probably watched Beetlejuice maybe 100 times, maybe even more than that. That was the movie for me. And same with Mars Attacks, too. Even though I don't remember anything about it, apparently, from whenever I was a kid, I watched those movies constantly. I love Tim Burton from the late 80s and early 90s. Maybe in the late 2000s, she wasn't that great of a director, really. He was starting to fall off a little bit, but definitely during those late 80s, early 90s films, he was just he was a force to be reckoned with, that's for sure. How about that cast for Mars Attacks? Jesus Christ, there's a total of 90 cast members in the film, and only half of them actually matter. Well, not even half of the cast matters. This film stars the one and only Jack Nicholson, Glenn Close, Annette Bening, Pierce Brosnan, Danny DeVito, Sarah Jessica Parker, the one and only Teen Wolf, Michael J. Fox, Rod Steiger, Natalie Portman, Pam Grier, Jack Black, and so much more. And oh yeah, just to add on to that cast, Tom fucking Jones, Mr. It's Not Unusual, is piling right onto that cast. Why don't you, Tim Burton? But don't get me wrong though, I love Mars Attacks. It has its sentimental value to me, but it just seemed like Tim Burton was like, alright, I'm gonna get all these A-list actors, come up with a movie that has virtually no plot whatsoever, and just be like, alright, go fucking wild, guys, and see what you can come up with, and then come back to me and see what we can do with this thing. Mars Attacks was released December 13th, 1996, with a budget of roughly $70 million. And from what I understand, it pretty much tanked whenever on opening day. So it's unfortunate, but you know, Mars Attacks, it is what it is. But about Mars Attacks, the president, he announces that Martians have been spotted circling Earth. Martians claim that they come in peace, but when it comes to the first time that they meet with the humans, they attempt to kill everyone and basically try to take over the world. That's pretty much the plot in a nutshell, but I could easily argue that there's virtually no plot to this film whatsoever. But before we dive a little bit deeper into Mars Attacks, you guys know what time it is? I think you guys know what time it is. It's time for...
Trivia time.
That's right, your favorite segment of the day, boys and girls, trivia time. Did you know they weren't sure what the Martians should sound like, so the script basically read, ack, 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 for all the lines of the dialogue. Eventually, they still didn't know what the voices were going to sound like, so they just kept that in the script, and for post-production, that's what they did. It reminds me a lot like Charlie Brown whenever they couldn't figure out the voice of like the parents or any of the teachers, where they're just like mwah, 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 mwah. It's just a gargled mess basically, and you have no idea what they're saying. This has absolutely nothing to do with the voices, but the film is supposed to be taking place in present 1996, but all the army uniforms, the tanks, jeeps, artillery, everything are all dated back to the 1950s. Because I was wondering that. I was like, everyone else looks like they're dressed in normal clothing for that time period. And then they show the military, they're all using ancient guns. They're all using ancient everything, like artillery that no one ever uses anymore. It was very odd to me. I was like, why are they doing this? Did they go to an army surplus store and that's all they happen to have that day? First draft of the script, and even in the novel, the Martians' ray guns had a variety of lethal and graphic effects on people. These examples include people being dissected, body parts cut off, literally exploding, melting, being shredded, or having huge holes blown into their bodies and turning into flames when hit by a Martian ray. However, to avoid an R rating from the MPAA, the film's producers were forced to tone down the effects of the Martian rays to simply having people being reduced to skeletons, because I feel like that kind of hurt them a little bit whenever they did that, just to avoid the R rating. And that's just my opinion. I think it would have been cool if they made it a little bit more brutal. Tim Burton clearly has no idea how to market his film, because when people had their flesh vaporized from their bones, the remaining skeletons were either red or green, because Tim Burton explained this had been done because this movie was scheduled for a Christmas release. Also, the red and green skeletons were first seen in Beetlejuice from 1988, my favorite Tim Burton film of all time, when Barbara and Adam were in Juno's office. You could see them with other ghouls looking at the screen, and I don't remember that at all. I'm gonna have to look back and see if I can catch that at all. But Tim Burton clearly has no idea how to market his own film, because this is not a Christmas movie whatsoever. Apparently in the 90s, to pitch a film, all you had to do was show trading cards to whatever producer that you're wanting to work with to be able to put out this film. Because Tim Burton, he pitched the idea of the film to Warner Brothers by showing them the Topps trading cards that inspired the screenplay in the first place. And literally all of the Topps trading cards were just the pictures of the Martians. That's all he had to base his screenplay off of. He virtually had no plot. It was just like looking at pictures of these Martians. We're like, well, I'm going to make a film out of this and see what I can do. Personally, I think this is probably the most ridiculous trivia tidbit that I've read so far. The producers, they wanted to use a heat ray sound effect from the one and only War of the Worlds from 1953. as the sound for the Martians' ray guns, but Paramount refused permission to do so, because that is an important attribute to War of the Worlds, apparently. I feel like a lot of people know this already, but Tim Burton, he had wanted the Martians be brought to life by stop-motion animation, but finally went with CGI because he realized how much more expensive and time-consuming it would be. The animators basically told Burton that they could animate the Martians without the motion blur, but to make them more stop-motion-y, quote-unquote, but Burton, he decided against that. I'm kind of glad he did, because that wouldn't look natural at all, but on the other hand, I think it would be cool to see a stop-motion adaptation of this film, because anything, if stop animation is done correctly, I love seeing it in just a full production mode. It's really cool. I really want to see someone recreate Mars Attacks, but in a stop-motion adaptation. That'd be super cool to see. I know all of you love trivia time, but I think it's about time to take a trip down memory lane, shall we? Let's get right into Mars Attacks from 1996.
What is that? White House is coming out live.
My fellow Americans, this is a momentous occasion. It is profoundly moving to know there is intelligent life out there. Alien life. And our world will never feel quite the same again. Once you believe.
Martians, please come to Earth, please.
Once you rise above fear.
Annihilate! Kill!
Let's not be too rash. Then you'll be invited.
Hi there. Are you interested in the White House?
To meet with a new people.
It's so perfect that it's happening at the beginning of the new millennium.
More powerful than the might of America.
I'll tell you one thing, they ain't getting a TV.
More advanced than the brains of Britain.
Ladies and gentlemen, this could be a cultural misunderstanding.
But be prepared for a few changes to what we know and love.
You're Tom Jones, right? It ain't unusual.
As we must learn to dance.
Girls, get out!
To a new tune. Jack Nicholson.
Whoa.
Why can't we all just get along? Glenn Close.
Kick the crap out of them.
Pierce Brosnan.
What, in your view, are some of the things that the Martians can teach us, Professor?
Quite a lot about Mars, I expect, Natalie.
That means
Danny DeVito.
You want to conquer the world? You're gonna need lawyers, right?
And Annette Bening.
I think they've come to save us.
From director Tim Burton.
Hey, we all make mistakes, Mr. President.
Mars Attacks.
Not anymore. We're going to take charge of this thing.
So when the intro credits roll, they take so fucking long because, mind you, there are over 90 plus actors and actresses in this film, and they apparently have to give credit all to them right away immediately. And it's cool because whenever they were doing the credits, they wanted to make it stop motion, and but it's like super annoying stop motion to where it's just like the credits are rolling around on all the different moons. And it's just so aggravating. And they play this annoying sci-fi music in the background. And it's 3 or 4 minutes long of just unnecessary credits rolling when you could have just done it right from the get-go. But whatever. Mars Attacks, it starts out in Kentucky as a Filipino family watches in confusion as a herd of cattle on fire start running past their home. Its spaceship is seen departing from Earth and eventually returning to Mars. And when it gathers hundreds of other Martian ships and they eventually head back to Earth, President James Dale, who is played by Jack Nicholson, along with his aides, addresses the United States concerning the historic event. Several days later, the president's science aides set up first contact meeting with the Martians in Nevada as President Dale watches the development on TV with his wife Marcia, who is played by Glenn Close, and his daughter Taffy, who's played by a young Natalie Portman. And when I say I clearly don't remember anything about this film, and what I mean is like the first maybe the 15-20 minutes of the film, it's just constant character development of characters that virtually have no roles whatsoever in the film. They maybe have 2 or 3 lines to say other than that. Like, even Glenn Close, she's supposed to be like the supporting main actress in the film, but she literally only has maybe 10 minutes of screen time at best. And Danny DeVito is casted as one of the main actors in it too, and he literally only has like 5 lines at best. It's so aggravating. Like, I kept writing all of these characters down, hoping that they have some relevancy to the story whatsoever, if like they have an important role. But no, you're just trying to piss us off, Tim Burton, and add all these unnecessary characters into the film that have virtually no reason to be in it whatsoever. So there are so many location and timestamps. It's totally insane. Like, they're not necessary whatsoever, because it's usually like the location is basically in the same area, or they're just going to Nevada, or they're going to wherever. And it's so annoying. And it'll be like the most oddly specific time. It'll be like, it's 2:43 on May 10th or whatever. Like, do we really need that specific of a time? And none of that matters either. Like, they'll get these locations. Well, some of the locations matter because they actually end up being there whenever the Martians attack. But, like, and none of them matter. Like, none of this matters. And, like, there's no plot to it whatsoever. There's no follow-up. There's nothing. It's, like, all this development for no reason. And it's, like I said, it's like Tim Burton casted all these A-list actors and are like, it's about Martians invading Earth, so fucking have at it, I guess. Let's see what we can come up with. Anyway, while this is all happening, as the president is watching all this happening on TV, they are using a translator machine as an ambassador of Mars. They announced that they come in peace. And if you remember, that's in my intro song because I absolutely love that quote and the way it's delivered. And when a hippie releases a dove, it's apparently a symbol of peace to the hippies. But the ambassador shoots it before he and the other Martians slaughter literally everyone at the event where they're all gathering to see the Martians in the first place, including General Casey, who is played by Paul Winfield, and news reporter Jason Stone, who's played by the one and only Teen Wolf, Michael J. Fox, and Billy Glenn Norris, who is played by Jack Black, before capturing the beloved talk show host Natalie Lake, who is played by the one and only Sarah Jessica Parker, and her obnoxious pet chihuahua. Before General Casey gets got, he ends up saying that he thinks that there's just a bunch of cultural differences between the humans and the Martians, because after the dove is released and the Martian shoots it, he's like, oh Christ, that's not a symbol of peace to them, it's a symbol of war. And this is when the president, he ends up telling Professor Donald Kessler to renegotiate with the Martians, whose ambassador later requests to address the United States Congress. And at this meeting, the Martians, they literally kill all of Congress except for the president. And Kessler, he ends up begging the Martians to stop, but is knocked unconscious and taken aboard to their ship, where he is later shown with his body parts dismembered and his disembodied head remaining animated. At this point, General Decker, who is played by Rod Steiger, he is super anti-commie, and he's trying to convince President Dale to retaliate with a nuke, but the president refuses. He's like one of those, he apparently hates commies, and he's just like, we gotta nuke them all. You know what we did in the past, right? And it always worked. President Dale's like, no it hasn't. You are dead fucking wrong there, man. After a failed attempt to assassinate President Dale, in which a disguised Martian, who is played by Lisa Marie, is killed, the Martians eventually invade Earth in massive waves, starting in Washington, D.C., and quickly spreading around the globe. They attack the White House, and then while they're attacking the White House, the Secret Service evacuates the president, but first separated from them during the chaos. After the president of France is assassinated by the Martians that night, and while that's happening, President Dale is on the phone with him, actually, and the president of France is like, oh, you'll never guess who's here. We have the Martians here. We're calling a truce. And President Dale's trying to get them out of there, and he's like, you don't want to be in there. They're going to kill you, and it's too late. They end up basically just killing everybody in the room. And later in the night, the U.S. government attempts a nuclear attack on the Martian motherships, but that ends up not working out, and the Martians continue destroying Earth and start defacing and vandalizing the entire world. And eventually the Martian leader and his bodyguards breach the bunker where Dale has been taken, and Decker is reduced to the size of an insect before killing him, because Decker pretty much sacrifices himself, and he's like, I'm gonna protect you, Mr. President, and I'm gonna jump out in front of you and save you, and just ends up getting got. and the Martians kill everyone in the bunker except for Dale because you can't kill the main character, and who makes an impassioned speech by an attempt to basically plead for peace and also for his life. The Martian leader, he apparently is moved by this, and he seems very receptive of the speech and very accepting of it, but he deceptively appears to agree to a truce with Dale, and eventually ends up trying to kill him as he's trying to go for a handshake. All this is happening, the Martians attack Las Vegas. Byron Williams, a former world champion boxer, he leads a small group of survivors consisting of Barbara Land, who is played by Annette Bening, Tom Jones, a waitress named Cindy, who I was never able to find the name for, and a lawyer who is played by Danny DeVito, to an airfield and host to flying a small jet who is apparently owned by Barbara Land to safety. And apparently Tom Jones knows how to fly a plane because fuck it, Tom Jones can do everything, right? And they barely make it by losing Danny DeVito in the process because Danny DeVito thinks everyone's lost. So he's just like, fuck it, I'm going to go back to the casino and have some fun. And he ends up getting got because he sacrifices himself, basically. And while they're trying to escape, they discover a large group of Martians stationed there as they're preparing to take off. And the ambassador is among them all. The ambassador of Mars, that is. And Byron creates a diversion by basically challenging them to a fist fight because he's like, put the guns down, I'm taking my guns down. And you guys, we're just going to have a good old-fashioned fist fight. And while he succeeds in killing the ambassador, he is eventually outnumbered and killed. But Tom, of course, he saves the day because he can fucking fly a plane, apparently. And Barbara and Cindy are able to escape. Billy Glenn's brother, who's Richie, played by Lucas Haas, discovers that the Martians' head explode when they hear Slim Whiteman's Indian love call. When he goes to rescue his grandmother, Florence, Richie and Florence then drive around town using the song to kill the Martians, and eventually broadcasting the song on a local radio station. Thereafter, armed forces broadcast the song around the globe, killing the Martian leader and most of all, if not all, the other Martians. Natalie and Kessler's disembodied head kiss while the Martian spaceships, they start to crash into the ocean, and all of them collide into each other. I forgot to mention, before the first initial wave of the Martians coming to Earth, there's a weird side character, Art Land, who is also played by Jack Nicholson, because quite frankly, his other character doesn't really matter and had no added value to the story whatsoever. But he's like running a Ponzi scheme and wanting world investors coming around to invest in a hotel of his. He has this bright idea of opening a Martian hotel. I don't know if he's trying to capitalize on the Martians coming and they want Martians to stay at this hotel, or they want the survivors of the Martian attack to stay here. I really don't know. He's just an alcoholic asshole that seems to have a Ponzi scheme going on every once in a while, and it doesn't really matter. And Jack Nicholson apparently was really excited about having double roles in this film. And he like jokingly talked to Tim Burton. He's like, I could just play all the roles in this film if you want me to. I'm like, what? And that's what I mean. They have all these A-list actors and actresses and virtually have no reason to be there. Like Barbara Land's character, she has no reason to be in this film whatsoever. She has one or two lines, and it's just her talking about her being an alcoholic, and that's about it. Well, she's an alcoholic in recovery, mind you. It doesn't fucking matter. It's so aggravating. Like, I want to love this movie. I want to remember for what it was whenever I was a kid, but there's just all of this stupid and just nonsense going on, and all of these like little nuances going on in the plot that don't really matter. And you think they have a purpose, but anytime that they have something going on in the plot, it virtually has no payoff, or they just don't ever mention it again. After all is calm, Taffy, who again is played by Natalie Portman, awards Richie and Florence the Medal of Honor. Byron, who apparently survived the major alien brawl, is back, and he arrives to his wife in Washington, D.C. to reunite with his former wife, who is played by Pam Grier. She had a character development too, which I didn't think mattered, so I didn't write it down. But apparently it did, and it was still annoying. I didn't care about any character development after her. And again, played by Pam Grier, her two sons, as the devastation of DC is being cleaned up. Barbara, Cindy, and Tom Jones emerge from a cave on the other side with some wild animals to see dozens of crashed Martian ships in Lake Tahoe. And the film ends by a bunch of wild animals gathering around Tom Jones. And the film ends by Tom Jones starting out to sing "It's Not Unusual," and boom, the credits roll. And I would insert the clip here so you can bask in the glory of Tom Jones, but I guarantee you, because I put all of my episodes on YouTube, I guarantee you YouTube will flag me for copyright issues. So just go ahead and watch any 90s show that ever featured Tom Jones, or look it up on YouTube yourself. Because for some reason Tom Jones was in every single 90s TV show that I loved. He's in Fresh Prince constantly for some reason. Well, Carlton apparently really loved Tom Jones, so he was always in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So there's that, I guess. If you're that interested in checking him out, you're not missing anything special, I guess. But yeah, that's how Mars Attacks ends, by Tom Jones doing some Jim Carrey pet detective shit from like he did in Ace Ventura. That's what it reminded me. That in the ending of this film, it reminds me of Ace Ventura, pet detective, whatever. Jim Carrey, he's in his apartment, and like his landlord is asking if he has any more pets in his apartment because he thought he heard them in the past, and like. He's like, no, there's no animals in my apartment. And then whenever he gets into his apartment, he whistles, and all these animals just come into his apartment. It's fucking great. That's exactly what this reminded me of. And it's a coincidence, probably. But I don't know if they're doing a little ode to Pet Detective. But Pet Detective, came out in 94, and this came out in 96. So maybe it was a little homage to Pet Detective. Who knows? It's
Ventura. Yes, Satan? Oh, I'm sorry, sir. You sounded like someone else.
Never mind the wisecracks, Ventura. You owe me rent.
Mr. Chickadance, I told you, you're my first priority. I'm on a very big case right now. Check this out. Look at that. That's a true albino pigeon. Some rich guy lost it. He's offering a $25,000 reward. As soon as I find this bird, you're paid.
I heard animals in there, Ventura. I heard them again this morning scratching around.
I never bring my work home with me, sir.
Oh, yeah? What's all this pet food for?
Fiber. Want to take a look inside? Come on. Come on! Go ahead. Snoop around. Well, are you satisfied?
Just don't let me catch you with an animal in here, that's all.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then. Loser. Come to me, jungle friends.
This Pet Detective is a much better film than Mars Attacks, so if you want to watch something good, watch Ace Ventura's Pet Detective, I guess. Speaking of good films, this leads into another segment that I would like to call
Schlock or Not.
That's right, that new segment is Schlock or Not, where I basically give my final rundown of what I think of this film overall. And believe it or not, I actually enjoyed Mars Attacks very much. It wasn't my first time watching it. I guarantee you, if this is the first time this movie was handed to me, I'd be like, this movie is total shit. Especially if I had no idea what it's about, what Tim Burton was trying to do. And I get what Tim Burton was trying to do. He's trying to make a satire, alien invasion film that basically had no plot, and just adding in all the little tropes that we know about alien invasion films. It's purely based on that. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed watching it again. For me, at least, it was like a little trip down nostalgic avenue, and just enjoying a film that I loved as a kid, and seeing those Martians as a kid, they really freaked me out. Like, I know it was supposed to be a funny film, and a lot of the jokes too that they told during the film, like, that was way over my head as a kid. I had no idea why my brothers were laughing. I'm like, why do they think this is funny? And I don't get it. But after watching it again as I'm older, I still get the dry humor a little bit. It's fun. I enjoyed watching this very much, despite all the obnoxious, unnecessary character development and all of the annoying little nuances where they have something, they have kind of a plot forming, and then they just don't revisit it whatsoever, or there's something that happens and there's virtually no payoff whatsoever. There's a lot of issues with this film, of course, but you gotta realize Tim Burton was like, okay, I have a lot of money, and it's the 90s, I can pretty much do whatever I want as a director at this point, and he's like, I'm just gonna make a satire alien invasion film, and just say to hell with everything with Hollywood. So, to me, this is not schlock at all. And if you think this is schlock, this film clearly wasn't made for you, and you don't understand that this is satire. But I understand where Tim Burton was coming from and what he was trying to do. And personally, to me, it was a fun viewing experience. Again, as an adult, as a 24-year-old, well, going on 24-year-old male adult, watching this film again, it was super fun. I really do enjoy it. And if you haven't seen it for the first time and you're feeling a little nostalgic for the 90s, go ahead and watch it. It's a fun watch. It seemed like I was really jumping into the action, but it takes a little bit for the action to really build up. But it's like when the action hits, though, it's the typical Tim Burton fashion where everything's just fucking crazy. That's the one thing. That's the main thing that I love about Tim Burton. Like, all of his films are just pure madness and make zero sense whatsoever. Yeah, Mars Attacks, for what it is 100% not schlock, and I highly recommend watching it if you haven't yet. And just as a little side note, you should probably check out Jim Carrey's Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, because it has absolutely nothing to do with Mars Attacks, but again, with the 90s nostalgia, you can go ahead and watch it, because it's fucking, well, for one, it's Jim Carrey, and two, Cannibal Corpse is featured in it too, so how can you not watch Pet Detective? Like, there's no reason to not watch Pet Detective. Just fucking go watch Pet Detective. And also watch Mars Attacks, too. It's a fun watch. I very much enjoyed it. I love Tim Burton. I love his madness and everything that he does. Yeah, just check out Mars Attacks. Go do it right now. It's a fun one. And, yeah, that was the end of Mars Attacks from 1996, directed by the legendary Tim Burton. I had an action film planned out for the next week for the April 15th episode. But I think I'm going to continue on with this little 90s nostalgia trip that I'm going on right now. So I'm not going to tell you what it is. It's a film that features Seth Green. It's from 1996 as well, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but it's Seth Green. So enjoy that too. Yeah, I'm giving you all the 90s hits basically. Just fucking, yeah, it's all out 90s right now. But it's a horror film from 1996 featuring Seth Green. That's all I can tell you. You can probably guess what it is at this point. But, and just keep you guessing. I want to keep you on your toes. With all of that being said, you can go ahead and follow the show on Twitter at CCMPod. You can follow the show on Instagram at Cult Classic Mania. You can support us monetarily by going to patreon.com/Cult Classic Mania. And you can also follow us on Facebook too if you want to. I don't really post on there that often, but you can check us out at Facebook.com/Cult Classic Mania. And finally, this has been another installment of Cult Classic Mania. I'm your host, Matthew. I'll talk to you all next week.
We come in peace.
Oh, yeah. Fuck ass, give me a beer!
Yeah, welcome back to the cinema. This is not for the typical. Time to feed the occipital lobe with the films that I call my home. Buckle up, settle in, we'll be breaking down a bit. Got a new take, make an old film relevant. About to give attention to the unsung revenants of the film industry. That's a wrap, let's riff.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Cult Classic Mania.